Hey y'all, we are back with another Mighty Multimedia Reviews. This time we are doing something that is pretty near and dear to my heart, something that I have been excited about for quite a while now, and something that I was excited to watch. We are reviewing Percy Jackson and the Olympians that came out on Disney Plus recently. I'm a fan of this series. I loved Percy Jackson, so this show was a blast to watch, and this is going to be fun to review. The first thing, kind of getting into, when I was watching this show, turning it on, was all these flashbacks to some of these just little things that were kind of all coming back to me and that I was appreciating. Stuff like the mist that hides the magical world, the rainbow mist that they use as a phone, basically. The sacrifices that they make to the gods when they're eating, shuffling off a little piece of their plate here and there. The dyslexia that all the kids have because they can read ancient Greek. Their minds are wired that way. Percy not getting wet if he doesn't want to because of who his father is. And then the biggest one I just absolutely loved was Percy's pen sword. We'll get into some of this, but it was book accurate. I don't know. I don't really love how you have to pull the cap off to reveal the sword. I kind of liked it in the older, probably worse movie in general where they clicked it. Either way, all these little tidbits just bringing me back, getting me super excited to dig into all this. Before getting into the plot and things adjacent to that, I want to take a more overview kind of look at this, and just to talk about some of the more aesthetic pieces of this show. So first of all, being that it seems like they threw a lot of money into this. Everything looks really good, from the cinematography to the CGI, to the fighting, to the action, to just the landscapes. All looks really fantastic. Great visuals going on there. Another one, just aesthetically, or maybe more editorially and such, is there's a lot of unexplained cuts to black, which is really funny. I guess they're built in for commercials. I don't know if they're banking on cable coming back. I probably wouldn't put your money on that. It's a little distracting. It's more funny than distracting, to be honest. But again, I thought I would mention it there. I usually, not that I don't care, but I'm just not super focused on that a lot of the time, is the title sequences, so the starting title sequence and the ending title sequence. I just really enjoyed it here. Very artistic, very on the nose, very on point, on genre here, with all these ancient Greek depictions and stuff showing the gods and everything. I just liked it, so I had to point it out. And then the last little bit, again, just aesthetically, but this is probably not a great category, is that pretty later on in my viewing experience, actually, I realized that this Percy Jackson show is not titled The Lightning Thief. I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. And, it seems to signal their long-term investment into this property, into this show, which is awesome, right? You wouldn't call it The Lightning Thief if you think that you just want one story name, and then you're just going to put season 1, season 2, season 3, so on after that. If they, I guess it's more towards the show and movie kind of form, so that's a little different there. I get that, but it seems to show an investment, that they're ready for some more seasons. They're not worried about the books. They just want to tell this long story. So I mentioned that I am a big fan of the book. I brought a copy that I had. I don't even know if this was my original, but this is, it's actually the first movie, so I want to talk about this too. Like, first of all, the similarities between the book and this new show, which I think are many, and I think are good. I'm not going to go through everyone again, just because I said the volume of how much is so similar, just ripped right out of the book, is very impressive. Just the consistency and everything was just amazing, and I think a lot of older fans really probably appreciated. But this, so this is from the first movie that was made. It says now a motion picture, right? That one didn't do that. They took a lot of liberties. It was in that era of making Harry Potter and stuff, so they were trying something new. I don't know, but I think that Rick Riordan here, is that you say his name right? Riordan sounds right. I don't know. I think he gave a lot more creative control than J.K. Rowling did. Right, she was super selective. She passed on Disney, just to make sure that she would have control over her creation, Harry Potter, and all of its depictions and adaptations that would happen later on the screen. So she rejected Disney and eventually came into business with Universal to make the movies that we all know, and that's because they gave J.K. Rowling the ability to have a lot of say in it. Again, I think Rick Riordan and the authors of Percy Jackson didn't do that with the first movies, so they took a lot of liberties, and it was probably to its detriment. You can see it stopped after 2 movies. The first one was decent. The second one was very, very not. But this show, getting back to this show, it was amazing how so much of it was absolutely ripped out, right out of the book, right out of this book here, which, as a fan of the book, really appreciated. But of course, the things that are making headlines and that people are talking about are not the similarities, but the differences. Okay, I guess I just talked about this a second ago, but the big difference between this show and the book is aesthetic appearances, right? The big obvious one being Percy Jackson. You can see here, Percy Jackson has short black hair. In this show, the actor who portrays Percy Jackson has long, curly, blonde hair. I don't know. We're going to talk about something in a second. I am, for the titular character, I think they maybe should have gone a little closer to the script, the Percy Jackson that people liked. I don't know if this was to differentiate from the other movie. I don't think you really needed to differentiate that much. And so I do want to say, though, that the kid portraying Percy Jackson here is doing a fantastic job, acting really, really well. So maybe that was his look. They didn't want to mess with him. They didn't want to bump him off course, mess with his vibe, his mindset whatsoever. So he could focus on acting. Being a child actor is pretty difficult. But I mean, you probably could have just thrown a wig, dye the hair, trim the hair. I don't know. I like my Percy Jackson book accurate, and he acts book accurate, but he doesn't look that way. You can go either way for that aspect. The other one is a lot of race switching for other characters in the book. So basically, from the original book, almost everybody is white, which, you want some diversity, absolutely. If I'm thinking correctly, I think there's some more diversity as you get further into the Percy Jackson series. But in this, so they switch the races. Again, these are all from white. Annabeth is black. Charon is black. Luke is some type of Asian. And Grover is Indian, I believe. I think he's something around Indian, at least. So they're switching a lot there. Again, these are all aesthetic. I don't know if this decision came from casting the best actors. If it did, then, good for them. Because, again, a lot of these kids are child actors, so you need ones that can do the job well. We've seen a lot of stories and series and stuff get tanked, I think, by bad child actors. So, again, I would prioritize good acting from kids rather than their look. If it wasn't, and it was just diversity initiatives, I don't know. I haven't seen too much, kind of hullabaloo online about this, but I'm sure there's some fans pissed off about it. We already saw Grover in a different race in the first movie, so maybe that opened the door for some of it, and this is a little bit of a softer landing. It didn't really affect the story that much, but definitely something that I'm sure people are talking about. Okay, 2 other differences, I suppose, but these are a lot smaller, a lot more nuanced, I would say, than the one we just talked about, which is kind of just big and glaring, and also surface level. These 2 being kind of themes or aspects that were present in this first book or the entire series, but are more kind of pronounced and focused on in this show, which I appreciate. The first one being this focus on how different Percy is from everybody else. The demigods, the other magical-ish creatures, I guess, right? And the gods themselves. Just how he is selfless and heroic and kind. Again, I think it's definitely present throughout the book. The books, plural. It probably comes kind of full circle at the end. We don't have to talk too much about that. But it was really pronounced here. There was this one scene in particular where Hephaestus had captured Percy, and Annabeth just made this very vocal, very literal. She said exactly what I just reiterated, basically. But There was also little moments weaving throughout that it wasn't as loud. It was more subtle and just put into the plot. I don't know. I think that's important. I think that's the heart of Percy Jackson. But I haven't read the books in a while, so I will make that caveat. But as I remember, it's not as pronounced. So I appreciate how they kind of brought that to the forefront a little bit more. Oh, and the second one is specific to this first book, The Lightning Thief, is that I really think they put in your face a lot more the risk, the threat of this war that is about to happen. This war being sparked off, if you don't know, I mean, you probably watched the show, so you know the basic plot, but I'll just give it to you, that Zeus's Master Bolt was stolen. He kind of think it's Poseidon, or he thinks it's Percy through Poseidon. So they're going to have this big war among all the Greek gods, and it's a problem, and it's in the books, definitely, again. But again, it's just more kind of shoved aside, not as talked about. People keep bringing it up consistently in this, and the kind of terribleness of it and the weight of it is put repeatedly over and over again onto our quest goers' shoulders. Again, I think it's a good, not a change, but a good selection of playing with the dials here a little bit. Before we get to the ending of this show here, season finale, I guess you want to call it, because this is the first season, 2 quick plot points, or just kind of things that happened, I guess, if you want to call it that, in this series that I appreciate. I just want to highlight. One is when they were coming out of the Lotus Casino, is what they call it, meeting Hermes, and Annabeth swipes Hermes' keys. By the way, Annabeth is an absolute beast in this show, as she should be. She should be running everything. She's the smartest. She's the best. Always is. They do the New York Yankees hat that she got from Athena that she can turn invisible very well. Again, all her plans and execution, everything is really well. But just specifically this little tidbit, and they steal his keys to his car. It's like a magical car or whatever, obviously. And they get into it. Percy decides to drive, and he's, 15, whatever he is, 14. And I just love this kid. No, he's even younger than that, I guess. And I just love this kid without any direction whatsoever. These 3 kids trying to drive this car and just doing an absolutely terrible job, just starting and stopping over and over again, turning way too slowly, bumping into things a little bit. I mean, I was getting some flashbacks to when I was learning to drive with my mom, yelling at me too much, and my dad just not caring, just being like, just drive, just get it over with, whatever, blah, blah. That's a little too personal, and not really, to be honest. But I just found it incredibly funny. These 3 kids with no instruction just trying to figure out how to drive this car, because that would be hard. That would be very hard to think about it. And the other point is just, and this is not really shown, but it's just this idea, and an idea that I loved throughout the books as well, too, when Annabeth, Thalia, and Luke, Thalia being dead in this one right now, blah, blah, whatever. The 3 of them, before they got to Camp Half-Blood, just surviving in the world, in the normal world, by themselves, the 3 of them just fighting off monsters. Thalia's obviously a child of Zeus, so she was a huge target. But the 3 of them just out in the world, really taking on everyone, is really fantastic. I hope we get some flashbacks in coming seasons. I think that would be something that people would like to see. At least I would like to see. Okay, now we are at the end, and basically what I just want to talk about is the layers in layers of the twists and reveals at the end of, again, both the book and this show as they do it. And this is actually one where I don't love how they do it, right? So the layers and twists or whatever, right? So the first one basically is that Ares is the bad guy. You think you stole the Master Bolt, and then it goes to actually Kronos is the big bad guy, which is true. The Ares one is a little not true because he's not the big bad guy, right? And he does want the Master Bolt and such. And then the final twist is that Luke, who Percy considered a friend, although wasn't there the whole time throughout this quest, is actually working for Kronos and is bad and set him up. He gave him his father's shoes. He's a kid of Hermes that almost took it. It was supposed to take Percy into Tartarus to meet Kronos. Grover ended up wearing him. Grover escaped, but still it was like, whoa. And Luke ended up stealing the Master Ball and the Helm of Hades, and he did all the machinations that laid the groundwork for Percy's coming and having to do the quest. And all this stuff, all this nonsense, right? Which is a great twist. I remember reading the book and just being absolutely, just betrayed. I think that Luke's betrayal really destroyed my trust in humanity. I don't think I've even been able to trust a single soul since then. Mostly kidding, but I do remember it just really hit me back in the day. I think it was well written. I wasn't really expecting that. There was clues as you go back to it. I was pretty young as well. My name is Luke, so that was a little bit. I was like, no, Luke can't be bad, but he was. And the issue I just have in this is in the book, and actually in the first movie, the reveal of Luke being evil is a lot different. It's a lot more purposeful. He takes Percy out in the sand and he attacks him with this scorpion, and he's near the water. Percy has to do some stuff, and it's more deliberate. He's giving him the spiel about why he should turn and whatever. And in this, it's not. It's dark with the fireworks in the woods, not near the water. Percy needs to be near the water. No scorpion whatsoever. They're just fighting with swords, and Annabeth is there. I think Annabeth's presence kind of ruins it. I like the scorpion idea, poisoning Percy. Also, Backbiter didn't look exactly how I wanted it to, but that's fine. Backbiter is Luke's sword, which is kind of messed up because it's like half the whatever metal they use and steel, so it can kill both humans and magical creatures. So it's getting hardcore. But either way, it wasn't everything, but it was kind of it was the climax that everything was coming to, right? So you want your climax to be really good. In some ways, it doesn't matter if everything works, even if everything works, but then your climax doesn't work. But in this, enough work that it was fine. And this climax wasn't terrible. I just think it could have been better. All right. Overall ideas, wrapping this up. I loved it. I think you can tell by what I loved it, and any critiques are coming from love. But it was a fantastic adaptation first and foremost. Fantastic adaptation. But it was also a really fantastic show in itself. So that was all really good. It really delved into these family dynamics of the Greek gods and their kids and the demigods and all of this, as well as just power dynamics in general. I think those themes are going to carry on into the future. I loved how some of it went, specifically at the end with turning out who Hades is, and then the conversation between Zeus and Poseidon. Really good stuff. We got to see a lot of gods in this, and there's going to be more to come. So I'm really looking forward to it. These books have so much more to offer, and I can't wait till they do it. Another thing, it's in the books, but this first series, show, season, chapter, whatever you want to call it, book, this first entry is very subdued. There's so much more that comes after this, but this holds a lot back. It holds a lot back in just what the characters know and what they need to know and stuff, but just not going full tilt in some of the monsters that are used, some of the high concepts, seeing all these gods and stuff. It held itself back, held itself subdued, so that we can naturally build up into how a great story goes. So I'm looking forward to the future. I'm sure there's a bunch of Percy Jackson fans out there that are the old Percy Jackson fans. They're loving the adaptation, loving what they're seeing, and I hope that this is reaching a lot of newer fans out there as well to get into this, specifically the Greek mythology. I was a huge mythology person. Percy Jackson was a huge reason for that. So, oh man, I love it. Can't wait for the future ones. But that's it from me for today. I am done. Signing off.